Hello, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. It's the Juice and Luce show, baby. The first one of the year. It's the first Juice and Luce show of the season. I am Ron Luce. I am joined by the Juice Man himself, Juice buddy, my friend. How are you doing on this chilly, albeit kind of beautiful Sunday here in the Chicagoland / Northwest Indiana area?
Yeah, dude. So I don't know about you, and I don't know about anybody listening, but this time of the year, I always start to get like cagey. We've been inside for so long. I'm like, This sucks. And I'm very active. Like, you know me. I like to be out. I like to be doing things. I play golf like 60 times during the summer, and I go to baseball games, and I'm always moving. And like, these 3 months just suck. This like seasonal depression shit. It's real. Like
it is.
So today was kind of nice. Went out and I was at the parents', so hung out with the dog a little bit. And over the weekend was nice. Celebrated Brooks's girlfriend's birthday. So we went to Federales and a couple places downtown. Went there and just kind of hung out. It was good to like be outside, be in like the real life. Let me say this, like I had the most rewarding, like best experience on Lakeshore Drive ever this weekend because I was on a trolley and we could drink on the trolley.
Yeah.
So how awesome is that? Like I was sitting there, I'm like, I've never been on Lakeshore Drive and been so happy because it's usually a parking lot. And yeah, so that was this weekend and baseball obviously started. I obviously talked to 2 shows ago how I'm waiting for spring training to end because it takes forever. It was nice to like get that little bump of baseball, just to like tie me over a little. I watched a few innings over the course of the weekend, not much. Tried to watch I don't know about you, but I'm like a secret NASCAR fan. Watch a little bit of the racing.
I am also a secret NASCAR fan.
So like the Daytona last week, and I watched Fontana this week a little bit, and the Illini were on in the morning for basketball, and the Bulls played in the afternoon. So there was plenty to keep me busy. But with that said, I did tune in to a couple pitches, a couple innings here and there, just to see who was in, what was going on. I did catch the PCA awesome throw to second base to double off the guy at second. That was pretty cool. But other than that, I was traveling during Assad's start, so I don't have much to say about how he looked. I'm sure you did because I'm sure you watched a little bit of it, but it's a good weekend.
Yeah, man. It's funny. I'll keep it really short to the weekend thing. Had it not been for some plans changing, I might have actually run into you guys at Federales because that's where I was supposed to be celebrating a birthday over the weekend too. So funny that you mentioned that. No, man, I'm right there with you. It was a beautiful day in the Chicagoland area. It gave you like that little tease of like spring is close. You're like,
it does, doesn't it?
Yeah, like mid-40s and sunshine feels fantastic, but like the same thing in like early November makes me like it's cold. It's the tale of 2 seasons at the same temperature kind of thing when it comes to Chicago, as everybody knows. But yeah, man, spring training is here, so that part of it's kind of nice. Quickly to the comments with Mr. Jeremiah saying, "Hello, how you doing, sir? Good to see you in the comments." And if you are watching along with us on Twitter and you want to be in the comments, go over to YouTube. Go join us. Subscribe to On Tap Sportsnet. You hit that little bell ring-a-ding button, and it'll give you an alert when we go live. That way, you don't have to be scrolling aimlessly on Twitter to find out when we're going live. You'll always know. So that's the little shout out and plug.
Or follow the Facebook. Go ahead and follow the Facebook too. It's another good way to find us.
Absolutely.
I know for a fact that some of the people listening to our show who are maybe a little older or don't do YouTube or don't do Twitter. Hello and welcome to all of you over here. We know you're watching.
Absolutely, man. Well said, well put. But let's dive into it, man, because I sent the message in our channel for the podcasters here on Cubs on Tap, and I was itching to talk baseball today, just itching. I was like, I can't wait till Wednesday or whenever we're going to record next. It'll be middle of the week, and I was like, I need to talk baseball. Need to talk. It was just frothing. I was like, I need to talk it. And hey, you were ready, Juice. So let's get into it, man, because like you mentioned, spring training opened on Saturday. Cubbies with the big win. against the Giants. It was kind of cool. You know, we got to see some of the pitch clock. I know that's something you were used to, obviously, because of all the South Bend games you see. You saw all these rules already getting put into motion last season. So it's been kind of cool just seeing that adjustment and how guys are taking it and things like that. There's been a lot of pissing and moaning fans about the pitch.
Yeah, Ron, what's your opinion on it? Like, this is your first taste of it, so I'm curious, as somebody who didn't get to watch minor league games like me, do you like it or do you hate it? What's your opinion? It's only been 2 games so far.
I like it. It doesn't bother me. Let's put it that way. Like, there's some people that are legitimately like, I cannot stand this. And that's fair. I think everybody's, entitled to their own opinion. I don't think it bothers me. I like the fast pace. And it's not to the point where I think it's excruciatingly fast, right? It's not like catch ball, get in, throw, right? Like, there's still a little bit of the okay between pitches, but it keeps the pace of the game going. And I saw something on Twitter, and again, I need to just start bookmarking this shit so I can give proper credit to who's actually tweeting these things. But it was somebody putting up a clip from the 2016 playoffs. It was actually the NLCS, Cubbies, Dodgers.
Oh, I saw this too. The Pedro.
How many times can Jose Altuve score an inside the park home run by the time he makes one pitch to David Ross?
Yeah, I saw that on TikTok, I think.
Yeah, and it was like 6 times.
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy. Yeah, and I'm like, that's nuts when you actually sit down and think about it. It took that long to throw one pitch. Like, that's why I kind of like it. Is it just, if nothing else, because I think for both the pitcher and the hitter, when guys try to like play the mind game of waiting, I don't think it helps anybody. Yes, I know there's a timing aspect to it, and I understand that, and players are creatures of habit, and they'll be the first ones to tell you. Stroh is the exemplary guy in terms of like fucking with guys' timing and stuff like that. But I think it's good for the pace of the game. I think it almost might help some batters and pitchers too, because it just forces you to be more in tuned. You know what I mean? I don't hate it. It's not bothering me. It's not changing the way I'm watching baseball by any stretch of imagination. I will say, you know what is probably a bigger thing that I'm enjoying is the bigger bases. Because, boy, them Cubbies, especially today's game, were running. And I love it. I love that.
Well, we were early on that too. You know what I mean? We were talking about that last year when we kind of started, when the Cubs were bad and we didn't have much to talk about. It was a lot of talk about the farm system, the new rules, the farm players that were and how they were going to fit into the new baseball. But yeah, no, I mean, as somebody who's watched a lot of it, it seems like it's just baseball to me. I saw so many South Bend Cubs games that the only gripe I have with it is for people like me and you who like to tweet wrong during the game, it is very tough to do that.
It is.
Like, it makes sense.
It definitely
because if you go and you send a tweet, you could miss 2 or 3 pitches. Easy. I remember seeing Pico Armstrong do something last year live and being like, yeah, I should definitely tweet that. And by the time I had tweeted out that he stole second, he already stole third. And then he was already sack fly at home. And I was like, oh, man, I got to start this all over and reword it by saying that he went around all the bases pretty much by running, So that's the only gripe I have with it. Like, if you're going to be social on social media, it's a little bit more difficult.
It means you got to be quick with them.
Oh, you got to be lightning hands. But like, as we know, like, I think it's either me or Tyler are the oldest on Cubs on Tap here. So we're like the old people with technology while we sit on our phone. Like, that's why Tyler wasn't public for so long. Yeah, I know, right? Like, but
still typing.
Yeah, right. Like, the funny thing is like, I'll tell you right now, I'm not quick on that. Like, that's fair. I'm not good. And so you may see me be very selective with what I tweet now, opposed to, missing pitches because you may miss some action. But I don't know. I think that like the pacing of the game definitely becomes better. I do think too that it's going to sort through. I think it's already sorting through some players too. Like, some are really struggling with the adjustment, and I think it's going to be interesting to see, what adjustments they make. I know like a game ended earlier already on, somebody taking too long to be in the box and was automatically called out.
Yep.
I think that was Boston and somebody else, right?
I want to say it was the Red Sox and Braves.
Yeah, something like that.
I think it was, yeah.
So I'm good, and it almost felt like that move was one of those, let's make an example. That way, like, people know, right? Like, it was almost like we're going to be super egregious with this just to set the tone.
We're going to make an example of you on day one.
Right. Just so we know, like, that we're not messing around with these rules.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think the baseball's been, and I've voiced my opinion on spring training. I think the new game is good. I hate practice baseball. I respect them. And I think like people overreact to what they see over 100%. The course of this whole thing. Like 100%. Just because somebody's 0 for 2 in their first at bats of the season, like, who cares? I mean, everybody was, and I know we have to do our due diligence. We wrote an article about the first game of the season and who looked good and who struggled, but like, there are already people worried about Samson. I'm like, who cares? Like, it's going to be fine.
It's the first time he's thrown a live
right
that aren't in a Cubs uniform. Like,
right. And with the new rules and with all the new bells and whistles that this game comes with, it's all going to be okay. I just hope that, like, over the course of this whole spring training run, when we're doing episodes here, everybody keeps in mind, like, everything's a grain of salt. I mean, how many years did we watch Kyle Hendricks be bad all the way until May?
Oh, yeah.
And then he was fantastic all the way to
the end. And then he turns it on and he shoves the rest of the season.
So, I mean, it doesn't matter. But I like the new I said on this podcast for a year now saying I like the new game.
Yeah.
And I got met with a lot of, backlash for it. We were sitting in the box, remember, when we went to the Sox game, and I got into plenty of arguments with the Sox on Tap guys about the pacing of the game. And people like tradition. I get it. People like the old game because it's what they watched, what they grew up watching. But
right.
I think that this new game and the new rules almost bring more action to it.
Yes.
And baseball needs more action if you want the younger generation to get on board with it. Yeah. And if the younger generation doesn't get on board with it, there's going to be a problem, because baseball has the oldest average of fans. Mm-hmm. And they are going to continue to lose fans year after year after year because nobody lives forever. And that's exactly where they're at. So they have to lower that average age. And this is how they think they're going to do it. They're going to make some changes across, the league, and things are going to be fine-tuned. What we see today isn't going to be the same thing that we see, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. There will be changes made.
Right.
But just know that as of right now, and what I watched last year, this to me was the best version that they can do with the game right now.
Agreed.
As it stands.
Agreed. And I think, just to quickly add to that before we keep going down our list of topics here, I think what it also does is it helps better exemplify the athleticism of baseball players because of the faster pace. And I think that is something the sport desperately needed, from the standpoint of how often do you hear people say baseball can't be that hard. You take all this time in between pitches and blah, blah, blah. And no, now you're starting to see some of it. You know what I mean? And I think that'll be good for the game too. So that'll certainly be fun. Just a couple quick other little notes about Saturday's game. It was Ron Santo's birthday. The Cubs scored 10 runs in their win. It felt very appropriate. Felt, whatever you want to call it, fate, coincidence, I don't care. But nonetheless, that was a pretty cool thing, as well as Jeremiah notes here in the comments, says broke the all-time attendance record as well for Cactus League, period. Which again, I've sat on this microphone, Juice, time and time again, when all those South Side scummies want to talk shit about hashtag it's different here because your roster looks different. No, it literally is different here because we're selling out fucking spring training games and setting attendance records.
Yeah. Also, they seem to sell that out and set that record like every year. Do they add, like, if they, as Sloan Park added more seating? Like, no, it's just my question, because I mean, I've been there. I haven't been there since 2000.
Well, isn't the grass
12?
Can't you technically have more people in the grass?
You can, but you'd be surprised, like,
how quickly that fills up.
Well, yeah, and even when I went, it was the middle of spring training, and there wasn't a lot of room out there.
Really?
I mean, yeah, I mean and obviously there's people, throw the blankets out there, and it's different than like your seat 2, 3, row 2, or seat 3.
Right,
you know
right,
what I mean? It's not
right.
you're confined. It's more, but yeah, no, I love that park. I've always told everybody, if you're going to take a trip to Arizona, take it during the spring training stuff, because it is like a little mini Wrigley-ish vibe. It's not obviously the same, but they do a damn good job in the field there. Just to walk around and see like what they have available for the players is like there's literally no built-in excuse with the equipment. None at all. Like, they have everything they ever could imagine, and
right.
Some.
Well,
but,
I think the thing worth noting too with that, just quickly here, is like you could tell between the last 2 days of games. Like watching Saturday, they're at Sloan Park. Like that looks like a gorgeous facility, like a top-notch, grade A facility. And then like you look at like the shitbag stadium that the Dodgers and White Sox share, that like they played today's game in, and it's a night and day difference, truthfully.
yeah.
It's just night and day. Again, like you said, it really does show like the resources at hand for the Chicago Cubs roster on a day in, day out basis during spring training. But speaking of resources and some of those resources being tested, especially when it comes to the health of players, 2 notable absences over the last 2 days. Seiya Suzuki was scratched from his start on Saturday. It doesn't sound like it's going to be anything too serious. Just, I think it was an oblique. Hopefully it's nothing too serious.
Yeah. I started doing research on this because I was like, I wonder if him bulking up has anything to do with obliques. And I'm going to pull full Nathan Fielder here. I posted it to another bodybuilding website. No, I did some research, and when you do bulk up like that, oblique is one of the things that you run, risk of injuring more often than not. I don't know if it'll end up being, and I'm not sitting on here like I'm worried and pushing the panic button. I'm not. It's early. Right. I don't know if the Cubs are just being extra cautious, or this could maybe if he doesn't go to the WBC, I'll be worried then. Yes. I think that's the timeline I'm going to set. But other than that, I mean, he's been working out and definitely, in the cage, you can see it. He seems like the type of baseball player too that doesn't need a long stretch of at bats to be ready either. Right. Like he's a seasoned veteran. He knows how to get his body ready. But no, yeah, I definitely, that's the only one out of the injuries that really kind of, perked up with me, because I was doing some research on obliques and saying, like, I wonder if this has to do with him bulking up. And sure enough, it is. There is a little bit of correlation to that. But with that said, who's to say that it's going to be a nagging, lingering thing for the whole season? We don't know yet. We don't know the severity of it. But I'm glad that they sent him to go get some tests done, to go get looked at, because it is important. I'm sure he wants to play in the WBC, but it's even more important for him to be ready, opening day, March 30th, than it is for him to be a part of that. And if he has to back out, he has to back out. He's hurt. That's the long and short of it.
I would rather the Cubs be overcautious with a guy like Seiya Suzuki than like, hey, yeah, no, you're fine, play through it, and then he gets hurt even worse. Like, I think in the Cubs' minds, like, Seiya Suzuki is a guy this year that is a breakout candidate, and like they really want him healthy, because like if Seiya reaches his potential this season with this team, I think this team truly does surprise a lot of people, because I think a lot of people still wonder what Seiya Suzuki is as an MLB player because of, the transition season and getting hurt and having to readjust to the league and all that good stuff. But speaking of health things, another health note, this one much less concerning, and it sounds like the Cubs are very much less concerned as well. Our friend of the program here, Justin Steele, scratched from his start today, Sunday, due to some arm fatigue. Didn't sound super serious. The Cubs didn't sound concerned about it. It's just, hey, no big deal. you'll skip your start. Not an issue. Probably would only pitch 2 innings anyway. Instead, one of the candidates for that 5th starter job coming out of camp got to pitch today, Javier Assad, and he looked really good. Faced the minimum, 6 up, 6 down, 2 innings of no hit ball. He also had 2 Ks. That's, I think, what everybody wants to see with Assad, because we've sat here and talked about it on this show too, right, Juice? Like, this is a guy that last season, had really good numbers overall. The ERA was solid. He was giving you solid innings. The strikeout numbers were decent. They were there, but he walked a lot of guys. That was the big concern. He mind you, he was a friggin' magician when it comes to maneuvering around those. I sounded like somebody died. I don't know. I things are booming and banging all over my house right now. I don't know what the hell's life
goes on. We're not the only people here.
Yeah, right. Yeah, unfortunately. Sorry, everybody. But that totally threw me off. I was
just making sure that Joey wasn't gonna pop out of a beanbag in your basement or something.
No. We are quickly pulling up the comment here from Jeremiah earlier. He says the hashtag "Where's Joey" movement is still very much in effect. I don't know where he is right now, but Assad, was a wizard, a freaking magician working around those walks. But that was something the Cubs very clearly told him, hey, if you get the command better, you're going to go places. Today, the command was there. I know you said you didn't get to see much of Assad on the mound, but man, he was efficient. Took advantage of Chris Taylor getting an infraction and going down 0-1 before it even starts. It's like playing wiffle ball. You remember when you played wiffle ball in the backyard, you start with the 0-1 count? That's what it felt like when Taylor got dinged for that today. And I was just kind of like, this is kind of cool. And then boom, 2 quick pitches, struck him out, done. And I was like, yeah, that's efficiency. So that was really good to see out of Assad. And quickly to our friend, Mr. Scott Crawford here, Mr. Scott from Iowa, in the comments, he said, Assad is now my guy I'm rooting for to be in that rotation. So, I mean, he's an intriguing guy. Again, I'm going to bring it up again. He was one of the first and probably the most consistent. I know we had the Matt Schwarmer experience, but this was the first guy that the Cubs pulled the fucking Cardinal shenanigans where they call up a dude you've never heard of before and he's good. That was Javier Assad. Nobody in their right mind going into last season thought Javier Assad was going to be I will bet you right now most people didn't even know who Javier Assad was before he got called up last season. And then he comes up.
Even the guy standing here.
Yeah, the 2 of us. I didn't know who he was. He comes out, he impresses, and now he's working on stuff. He looked a little slimmer. Not egregiously.
I noticed that too.
He looked a little slimmer. So, again, he's a young guy. You got to work off some of that little, that baby weight, as they call it. He's becoming a grown-ass man. He looks good. He looks healthy. And maybe, again, if he gets the command down, I know, again, you touched on it, about Sampson and people being concerned about Sampson. Another guy in that conversation, we've yet to see the third and Hayden Wesneski really pitch yet. But I think, again, just in a silo, obviously it's spring and it's just their first 2 appearances, Assad off to a better start than Sampson right now for that 5th spot. Anything else you want to add on?
The flip on that too is thank God that they have so much depth, because you're already talking about Kyle Hendricks probably not being ready for opening day. There's a lot of moving parts in this, and I mean, I don't want to say that Justin Steele not taking his start is a red flag, but it does just speak that when you have extra depth, you don't have to worry as much. We can comfortably throw a Sampson and a Assad out there and be comfortable with them getting a decent amount of innings out of either of those guys. And 2, I think it's so interesting to sit and talk about a lot of these guys in terms of, where pitching is now. I mean, really, you're trying to get 4 2/3 out of these guys, especially in this Cub bullpen that is going to have 2 guys who can go 3+ innings.
Long. Yeah.
And that's, obviously Keegan Thompson and Edward Alzoy, who are going to be 2 guys in that bullpen who are going to be able to go multiple innings, if not, 3 or 4. So when you're building this rotation and you're building you're not trying to get length out of everybody. You're just trying to get quality and getting 4 or 5 innings if you can out of your 5th guy. And they have plenty of guys who can do that. And that's what's so great to see about, them setting the tone early and coming out and having a good start like Assad. He gets that opportunity to, maybe if Kyle Hendricks can't go, now you have that comfortability that maybe you can still put a Hayden Wisniewski in that rotation. And then Assad maybe is the 5th until you get a guy like Kyle Hendricks back. And maybe that's the type of rotation that we kind of start the year here. But hey, there's going to be a month worth of these games to sort this out. And we got to take everything with a grain of salt. Great start. Now build on it. As you start to add more innings on your starts, be better. Be more efficient. Be as efficient as you were. And he'll find himself with a role. I mean, there's no reason why he can't find, maybe the Cubs roll out with 3 guys who can go longer than, multiple innings in that bullpen.
Yeah.
Maybe he's one of those guys who can maybe possibly do that. Who knows? But with that said, the depth that the pitching has right now, I mean, it's great. I mean, imagine being on the other side of town. I mean, they're scrambling because they have a 5th starter who's underneath, MLB investigation. The Cubs aren't in that position. The Cubs really have 4 or 5 guys. We even talked about Caleb Killian, who, if he were to wow in spring training, maybe he gets a couple starts until Kyle's back. There's a lot of competition out there.
A little cup of coffee.
Yeah, so there's a lot of competition out there, and I think Assad is a great start for that. Let's first start crossing these, and then when we have a full body of work longer than 10 innings, I think all of us could sit together and say who we want in this rotation, and not after Jameson Taillon, who's probably penciled in as that 3rd spot.
Yeah, 100%. In agreement with you there, Juice, in terms of the, this is truly a best case scenario. Competition breeds the best out of players, and you can never have too much depth, as we saw last season with the Cubs when pretty much their entire starting 5 went down for most of the first half of the season. So definitely something that, again, like you said, much better situation than the other team on the other side of town. They lose 1 or 2 starters, and that starting rotation is in shambles compared to where the Cubs would be if they were to lose 1 or 2 guys out of their rotation of what will be their first starting 5. But speaking of building on good starts, Nicky Madrigal made his first start at 3rd base today, led off. Little guy. But he looked good. Made 2 really nice plays defensively. Had an RBI knock. Again, it's spring. It's limited, sample size. But again, in a world where people are very intrigued by, first impressions, I certainly think, he made a good first impression. And Jeremiah, very earlier in the show, with a little giggle here, Madrigal, a 3rd base Gold Glove candidate. I don't know about that. But again, at least showing that competence of, oh, okay, maybe he can play 3rd. And, if they're in a bind or if he truly just outplays everybody that's a candidate at that position, okay. But good start overall to what we saw from Nicky 2 strikes today.
Yeah, my favorite quote I've ever said about Nick Madrigal. Nick Madrigal's like the steakhouse butter at a good steakhouse. If the steak is made well, you don't need it, but it's nice to have. I mean, I'm not going to sit there. Everybody mistakes me with the small Nick Madrigal quotes on Twitter.
100%.
As being a huge Nick Madrigal hater. I'm not. I think that he has a place on an MLB roster. The problem I have with Nick Madrigal is what the Cubs need, he does not provide. And it's at a position where the need that the Cubs have is power. And if he's going to play 3rd at all, you're putting a lot of our essentially ball touchers. They're not guys who drive the ball around the ballpark. And that's what he is. That's the limits of his game. And I think this move is strictly to kind of build his trade value. And maybe a little bit today it goes up because he proved that he can actually maybe play the position. So now instead of him just being pretty much a 2nd baseman and a very below average shortstop defensively-ish because of his arm, maybe 3rd kind of comes into the the forefront is like another position he can play.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I look around the roster, and my question becomes, and we were talking about this in pre-show, like the thing the Cubs need is power, and if David Bote is going to hit how David Bote is hitting, they're going to go with David Bote because he fills a need of this lineup that is just not there. They don't have a lot of power in this lineup, and David Bote has some power. It's not. I'm not saying he's middle of the lineup-esque, but he can run into one. He's already run into two. He hit the home run, and the double was hit real well. So I mean, there's a lot of people talking about can he do it? Can Nick Madrigal be a part of it? Yeah, sure, but I mean, we need to look at the whole roster as a whole and go, would they really keep both Bote and Madrigal on the roster? Do you think that? I mean, I don't know. Maybe. I think that's an outside chance because you're really keeping a lot of infielders at that point, right? I mean, you're gonna need some outfield help at that moment. And
yeah, I'm right there with you, man. And we'll let's kick the tires on that debate here, Juice, because we'll set the table here as well with it. Jeremiah said too. He said this one is for Juice. David Bote looks really good. As well, Bodie's off to a hot start, albeit small sample size, but 2 games, 5 at-bats, a run scored, a double, the homer that he had. Again, shout out to the Dingers boys. Their first dinger of the spring training is a David Bote bomb. I don't think anybody expected that. 4 ribbies as well. I mean, he's hitting 600, 3 hits and 5 at-bats. Like, he's coming out hot. And again, I think if nothing else, especially for a guy like David Bote, who originally was let go, was DFA'd, gone. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
The organization kind of started to ship him off, as, hey, we've got other guys now, and if you stick, you stick, and if you don't, we wish you the best. He's coming out swinging because he wants to be able to be in that conversation. Maybe he's not, like you said, the everyday third baseman by any means, because you have guys like Wisdom and Rios and Morel on the roster, but he's at least pushing the conversation of maybe he's a good bench bat. We've seen David Bote play second base. We know he can play second base. I'm sure if you were in an absolute pinch, he could play first base. If you were in an absolute pinch, I'm sure he could play left field. You know what I mean? Like, he probably has enough positional versatility, but he's really a third and second kind of guy. Like, that's his sweet spot.
Right.
And again, that's what you're essentially trying to turn Nick Madrigal into anyway. So it really does become a debate here of which, because like you said, you're not going to keep both of them. Either one of them is going to AAA and one of them is riding the pine more often than not and getting, a couple spot starts at third base or coming off the bench as a bat. Like, that's really what we're looking at here. And you also almost have to take into account, right? Like, Madrigal and Bote are kind of the outside guys looking in even on this discussion here, because you still have Edwin Rios, who they signed to a major league contract for 1 year, that has played third base and can play a little first if you needed to. Wisdom being the same way, and obviously already a very known commodity is Patrick Wisdom with the Cubs. And then you do have Christopher Morel, who, again, some people saying his best suit might just be the Ben Zobrist of this current team, and you play all over the field, and that's fine. Maybe that's what his best trait is. But like, Morel's making the team because of his positional versatility regardless, right? So like,
he can play the outfield too, so that's the other thing.
Right. And he can play all 3 outfield too. So like, you're already looking at 3 guys that can essentially play third base, and then 2 more on the outside looking in. Like, they really are fighting for, at this point, like a bench spot. But they have to be able to provide their value to the Cubs. And I think it's going to be an interesting storyline to keep an eye on now, assuming these guys both continue to produce, right? Obviously, it's super early, and as we've already beat the dead horse about a couple of times on the show. But as camp goes on, like, if these 2 guys both continue to hit a little bit, you start to see that value, especially, in some of these split squad games coming up. They're going to get tick at third base when that happens. Like, this is going to be an interesting storyline, I think, now that maybe a lot of people initially didn't think, right? Originally, it was Madrigal's going to play third. That in itself was enough of a storyline. Now it's, oh, yeah, Madrigal's playing third, looked solid in his first look there. Oh, but by the way, David Bote's hitting everything in sight right now and has already proven that he can be positionally versatile because, again, known commodity within this Cubs organization. He's been around for a while. So agreeance with you, Juice. I think it's going to be an interesting storyline to keep an eye on as spring training progresses.
There's just so many of those type of players on this team too, right? I mean, we even talk about McKinstry's that same type of guy.
Yeah,
you know, that,
we haven't even discussed McKinstry. Yeah,
I mean, there's in between Morrell and Bodie and Madrigal and McKinstry, and there's one more I'm forgetting. That's the same kind of swing guy. But with that said, I mean, there's just so much. Oh, my guy Chase Strumpf, he can play around the infield too. That's what I was thinking of. Which, I mean, he's a real outside shot to make the roster. But with that said, I mean, he's got a lot of talent too. That he can play second, he can play third.
Right.
But there's just a lot of the same player. So I think this becomes a storyline strictly because they're going to have to keep one of them, if not two of them, on this roster. And then it starts to become like, how many pitchers do you want to carry throughout the season? Do you want to carry 13? Do you want to carry 12? What do you want to do? And then that's going to impact who makes the team and who doesn't from the bench. Because, like I said, going into the season, going into spring training, pitching, and when you can't do anything else, pitch some more. That's the most important thing to winning baseball games. And I'm the type of manager or baseball, when I build my rosters on 2K or whatever, I keep more pitchers than I do, batting or batters or fielders or outfielders, strictly because, I mean, with the DH, the lineups are pretty much set now. There's not as much double switch that needs to go on or pinch hitting for the pitcher. Or, like, bench bats are just not needed as much. And that's why, like, when you sit here with 5 of these names, you're like, I don't think they're going to carry more than 2. And 2 to me would be a lot. If they carried 2 of those names, that would be a lot to me. But they're going to carry one of them, and there's 5 of them thrown for that place in the lineup. And to me, one of them's already taken, and that's Christopher Morel, because he's going to be on the big league roster. He's earned it. So who's the second guy? Who's that added bench bat? And to me, right now, if you made me make my roster right now, it's David Bodie. It's David Bodie. He's been with the club. He has the least amount of flexibility to go back and forth. So if he struggles, you just DFA him and you're done. And you can bring up another one of the 4 that you have that's stashed down there. So that's just my 2 cents on what's going on with that position battle right now.
No, and I like that you bring that up, because actually we got a really good comment here from Scott earlier. He said, any concerns about Morel's 2 games with the 4 strikeouts? He said he thinks still that he will be fine, but certainly concerning. Jeremiah followed that up and noted it here in the comments as well. Morel always been a strikeout guy. And I think that goes back to, I think with Morel, especially, just addressing Scott's question specifically here, I think with Morel, the biggest thing to keep in mind is he is such a routine guy at the plate. Remember last year, right? The breathe, right? And the get set and the think and the moment of reflection. Like, now that he's rushed a little bit, he's got to tinker his routine a little bit, right? And like, so I think right now it's a lot of just Morel getting used to needing to be in the box. And, granted, I think a lot of these pitchers have been throwing in the
too quick
to
me, it's too quick. Some of them, what I've seen is too quick, but that's
but I've seen some, like, in today's game, that, like, a lot of guys were running it down to, like, the 5 second
that adjustment.
Yeah, like they were running it down again. With guys on from the 20, they're still throwing like between 7 and 5 seconds left. And then overall, they're kind of, when it's the 15, when nobody's on, they're throwing around that like 5 second mark. So I think he'll be okay. It's just it's an adjustment period for everybody. That's why spring training's a month, because especially with new rule change, I think this is the one year that I'm kind of happy they have to go through a full spring training, because it just forces them to get used to the new rule. Because this is probably the most significant rule change baseball has ever gone through in my lifetime, and probably most people's lifetime, between the pitch clock, the bigger bases, the no shift. Like, they implemented a lot of kind of game changing rules all at once. So, it's going to be necessary, I think, for a lot of these guys.
Did you see that potential shift buster where you can
send the left fielder over in the shallow right? I did see that. Again, big shout out to the Dingers boys. Mitch tweeted that out. That was the first time I saw it, and I was just like, oh.
Somebody's going to do it too much, and the MLB is going to create a rule. It's coming. Yeah. If I were the MLB, I'd have it written up already, ready to go.
Just ready to roll it as soon as somebody does it.
The first week is going to be somebody's going to do it, and they're going to have success with it, and it's going to be. With that said, I mean now just get the ball in the air. You're probably running around the bases forever. But no, I was laughing because they were. I don't know what game I was watching or what I was listening to, and they were talking about the potential of like moving guys around that way to bust that shift rule. Yeah. I was like, we were talking about that on this show in the winter, having athletic guys sprinting to spots, because technically the rule states that they have to be like in certain spots at the pitch. It doesn't say that they can't be moving with the motion. So it's like, it's interesting to see
that gray area. Yeah.
Right. So it's interesting to see, I think there's going to be a lot of teams that shifted a lot last year who are going to try to find little, here's and there's that they can, make up a step or two in the right direction of where they think the baseball's going.
A little bit of tinkering on the fly. I agree. Yeah. I think that'll be, and it's going to be the classic case. Nobody's going to show their cards in spring training.
Oh, absolutely not. Well, you play
that's coming on opening day. Like that's some shit that's getting busted out on March 30th. Like that is not something you will see between now and then. That'll be interesting. It really will be. And Juice, this is actually kind of a good question. So I kind of want to address it here really quickly before we keep moving forward, because we are getting to the end of our list. And we did good on timing. Hey, we followed our pitch clock really well, Juice. We're doing good here, buddy. But Jeremiah, he says, who's going to be the fourth outfielder? And I think because of your point, Juice, I'm just going to go ahead and take this really quick. I'm almost considering Morel the fourth outfielder at this point, because you have to consider Trey Mancini your DH, right? Quote unquote.
He can do,
but he can play outfield.
But he can't really do it. But
I mean, again, if you're in a pinch and Ian needs a day and Morel needs a day too, and Belly can't move around or something, like that would be the only time you're going to see him out there. But again, you've got positional versatility with a guy like Mancini. He can play a little outfield. He can play first. Hosmer, exclusively a first baseman, which is fine. You've got Horner, is exclusively going to play second unless Dansby needs a day. Then you'll probably see him bump over to short. If they both need a day for some reason, that's when Morel is going to get a start at short. Probably going to happen maybe once all season, but again, it'll inevitably happen at some point. But you've got, Swanson's your everyday shortstop. There's no question there. Amongst the guys they're going to keep at third, Rios can play multiple spots. Wisdom can play corner outfield. He did it a lot last year and actually was pretty decent at it. You have Morel that's going to play there quite a bit as well. And then you have some movement. Like, I think we are going to see a lot of Morel in center field if Belly takes days at first ever, if they want to save his legs a little bit or something. You know what I mean? Like, there's gonna be some weird shit they can do with this lineup. So I guess if we're exclusively looking at fourth outfielder from the standpoint of they're on the roster because of their ability to play outfield, to me that's Morel. Like, he's your fourth guy at this point because of just how the roster looks as of now, because you have your starting three, obviously. You got your Happ, your Bellinger, and your Seiya. You have your infield set outside of third base, right? You got Swanson, Horner, Hosmer / Mancini, I guess, with, probably Wisdom. I mean, he got the opening day start. I think that was worthy of consideration. You're really and you have to remember, Juice, back to our argument about the bench. You got to carry two catchers. Yeah. So it's Gomes and Barnhart. Barnhart's immediately, quote unquote, taking a bench spot already. So you are limited with how much they can do, because if you are going to carry a Rios you're already carrying Morel if Wisdom gets the nod at 3. So you're literally limited to one bench spot between Rios, Madrigal, Bodie, another outfielder potentially if somebody balls out and shows out. A guy like Mervis, if you were to carry him on the roster. Again, like you said, this really does kind of impact how their roster is going to look. So really long-winded way of saying I think it's going to be Morel technically as your fourth outfielder.
Yeah, and I think because you're carrying Trey Mancini, he may be the Ian Happ spell. When Ian Happ needs a day off, you send Mancini out there to play left. Obviously a lot of it will be Belly, I think, going back and forth between center and right. He can play both. He can then go over to first every once in a while when he needs to. I think it opens up an interesting conversation to start about like if this Seiya stuff is more serious than we think. Maybe a guy like Brendan Davis comes up and plays early and plays himself into that role to where he has more ability to spell. But the problem with that is they probably want to give Brendan more at bats this season coming off an injury. So I think Brendan very much ends up being like, he'll be up to spell Suzuki. He'll play more often than not in right field, go back down when Suzuki's healthy. Now, mind you, this is only if this is, a true issue for, say, a Suzuki, which we talked about earlier. I don't think it is necessarily going to be, or at least I hope not. But yeah, I think the way you framed it is right. Like Morel's going to be Ben Zobrist. He's going to be, when I need to spell, Belly, I'm putting him in center. When Patrick Wisdom is struggling or Rios is struggling at third, Morel's going to get a start at third base. When Dansby needs a day off, you're going to flip Nico Horner to the short, and you're going to have Morel play second. Like that's what's going to happen because you have two shortstops on your roster, and you can give Nico the next day off if you need to do that by putting Dansby back into the shortstop position and still playing Morel at second. Or maybe you carry a David Bodie, and David Bodie can play second, and you can spell, Patrick Wisdom and Nico Horner in the same day by playing a Rios at third and a Bodie at second, or, a Morel. You're going to have the ability to switch in and out. I think the fourth outfielder is kind of a tough conversation for us to have because, like you said, Christopher Morel becomes the fifth infielder, and he becomes the fourth outfielder. That's the versatility of the roster that has the ability to add another pitcher. Like that's why I think that's so valuable because, through the course of the beginning of the season, there's going to be guys are going to struggle early, and you're going to have to find these 3 and 4 inning guys to get to the end of the ballgame. And having those extra long, maybe fifth starter type guys who are like, hey, you're not in the rotation, but I'm going to just know you're going to pitch, every other day because I'm not throwing a Jameson Taillon like all the way to the 6th or the 7th. Like he's coming out in the 5th, and I need you to bridge me the 6th to the 8th. Like, and that ends up being your 3 inning stint. And you're going to do that twice a week, which ends up being like innings wise, almost a normal start. So I think that the interesting roster flexibility that they have with the bullpen and the amount of arms that they have that can go deep into games and longer than like, it's just not built for like one and done anymore. Like the more of these guys you have that can go multiple innings, the better. And the Cubs have a plethora of them. And that's why I think the whole roster construction, having Christopher Morel struggling with the bat or not, because I think eventually he'll be okay. He just plays so many positions on the ball field, like above average. And he's also too, like you also, and we're going to talk about it in a minute, you lost kind of like an engine guy in Wilson Contreras, like the perfect guy to come in and fill that, intensity, plays the game like 150%. Like that's Christopher Morel. And that can be your backfill to losing a guy like that. A guy that like when you're down 1-0 and there's hits are, hard to come by, who puts one in the gap and gets everybody up and gets a rally going. Like that's the value that Christopher Morel has. He may not bat like 300 with like 30 home runs and 100 batted in, but if you get 240 out of him, but those 240 are like rally starting doubles and rally starting singles. Like a 240 hitter becomes way more valuable than like a 300, kind of down up 8 runs or down a type of guy who fills it up when it's really not needed. That's, and I get in this argument all the time with like, there are certain people that like, they talk about certain players like, oh man, that guy was so good. Well, if you go back and like watch a lot of games, like some of these guys, like they filled it up when their teams didn't need it. Right. And I hate to be like they're not clutch, and baseball is all about opportunity, and having clutch moments is about, somebody being on the ball field or on the bases and you coming through. So it's all about like how many of those you get. But I mean, there is some value to having like a 240 hitter that, just gets people moving and does things 100% all the time and sacrifices his body. And that's Christopher Morel. So I think that's kind of the spark plug type thing.
I was going to say the spark plug momentum shifting type player is good to have on a roster. Javier Baez was that kind of player for the Cubs, right? Like you said, Wilson Contreras was that player to a fault. I think one thing worth noting just with the whole roster construction, Juice, to kind of add on to your point, this is also the first year the Cubs are actually carrying a guy that's more of a DH, right? Like Trey Mancini's your DH. This is the first time they're carrying that, because even last season, the DH more often than not was Wilson Contreras when he wasn't catching. And if it wasn't him, it was a guy like Patrick Wisdom, or it was a guy like, insert name off the bench here. Like that was just a spot last year.
And the flip on that too is because you're not DHing a catcher, you're not having to carry 3 catchers. Like now the roster spot almost gets opened up because it's like, I need 2 catchers. That's it. Like it's Barnhart and Gomes. And but last year, a lot of times they carried Gomes, Contreras, and at times they had, what's his face? He played first too. Higgins. Same thing. So they carried 3 catchers and they had to just throw Higgins at first because it's like, well, we kind of need an infielder today because, we got to spell some guys. So they had to do a lot of that. And I think that kind of opens up another roster spot as well.
100%. And just to kind of cap off the argument, this comment made me chuckle. Jeremiah said, Danzy doesn't need days off. And he is an Iron Man. So
he plays a lot. But, I mean, there's going to be a day where he's going to need a blow. It's just that happens.
Absolutely.
10 in a row. I mean, but then again, he's got 190 million somewhere, and he's got to earn it. So,
he'll earn it. He'll earn it.
By all means, play every day, buddy. Go off.
Yeah, but speaking of money and earning money, let's discuss the elephant in the room. It's gotten to the point personally where I might just mute the topic at some point here on Twitter because I just don't get it, but. Wilson Contreras obviously came out publicly, and I think it was with Bally Sports St. Louis, who Bally Sports is going out of business, and it's going to fuck the Cardinals, which we fucking love. But that aside, said, he loves it more in St. Louis. Like the franchise is more his speed, this, that, and the other, and it's got Cubs fans losing their absolute brains about it. This is my quick take on it. It's like we said, right? We had the discussion here on this show. What are you going to do when Contreras comes back for the first time? He gets the round of applause, and then I'm just not going to say anything. That's a guy that feeds off the energy. He wants you to boo him. Like, that's a dude that's going to take it and shove it right back in your face. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, I think people forget the human aspect of people. Like, Wilson Contreras is not a Cubs fan. Wilson Contreras is a ball player. This is his job, right? Just because you love, I'm going to use public accounting firms for an example because that's my specialty. That's my background. I went to school for it, etc. Like, you could be a fan of EY, but somebody that worked there doesn't necessarily love EY. They might love it more at, KPMG or Deloitte, or it's the same idea with baseball. Guys are just naturally going to like shit better in other places. Wilson Contreras is not from the United States. He did not grow up a Cubs fan or grow up a Cardinals fan or grow up no. He's a ball player that's going to a team that's willing to pay him. Like you and I joked before the show, he's got 87 million reasons why he's going to say that he loves it in St. Louis. And maybe he does. There was a lot of that talk going back to a guy that was a Cub, I guess, legend in theory at this point, in Joe Madden. When he left Tampa, that was something that guys like Evan Longoria were very public about. They were like, I did not like his laissez-faire approach to managing. I want a guy that's on my ass. That's just preference. So I think, yes, does it hurt us Cubs fans because we all hate the Cardinals and because we're fans? Yes. But I think like everybody getting all up in arms about it, first off, you're letting him win. Truthfully, he's in your head. Like he's living there rent free at this point. But secondly, you have to take the humanity back into it of he's not a fan. He's a ball player. This is his job. He might like it legitimately in another franchise and how they do things better to his personal choices, right? Everybody's got their favorite bar. Everybody's got better experiences at certain jobs than other places. Like it doesn't mean the people that love the other place are going to hate you for it. Like it's just one of those things where like people need to breathe. Like don't get upset about it. Yes. Does it suck hearing them love the Cardinals? Your fandom pride? Absolutely. The human aspect of it, though, why are you getting upset? You're again letting him live rent free in your head, and that's just going to stress you out more as a fan. That's why I said I might just mute his name for a few weeks on Twitter because it's like, why are you getting upset about it? Yes, it generates buzz. It's fun to talk about. I understand that aspect of it. We're all fans. We like to talk about things, but again, a guy that had like he was never lying to Cubs fans when he expressed how much he appreciated Chicago. He didn't know how, St. Louis did things to a T. He said he loved his experience in Chicago. I think he would sit there and tell you the same thing. He was a part of one of the greatest team in franchise history. He was a part of an incredible run, the golden era, really, of Cubs baseball. I'm sure he will say great things about his experience playing for the Cubs. I'm sure he's still going to enjoy coming back to Wrigley to a fault, right? And playing at Wrigley Field. But just because the guy likes how another team does something more, and you as a fan just getting brutally upset about it on the Bluebird app is A, not good for your blood pressure or your stress levels, and B, like, just, again, take the humanity factor in it and take it into your job, your day job, like whatever you do, right? Like we are a sports media company at OnTap Sportsnet. I'm a fan of OnTap because it's something we've built from the ground. But at the same time, there's also that humanity aspect of it. And we've had guys come and go that it just wasn't a fit. They like it how it's something done better somewhere else. And that's okay. Absolutely. That's just the nature of the beast. And I think that, again, very long-winded, but that is my 2 cents on the whole situation.
I think you said it perfectly. It's funny to me how quickly we forget things too, right? We were just in this situation in 2017 watching Hugo Wego go to that same place. And that guy had the audacity to say that St. Louis pizza was better than Chicago-style pizza. It's not true. He knew it wasn't true. But there's certain things you got to say when you're the new guy, right?
Yeah.
There's certain things you got to say when you get in that clubhouse to be accepted. And it's a clear rivalry. It's clearly we don't like them, they don't like us. And that's true. Like it is so many different games that we play them, and the games are close, and the Cubs could be 20 games under 500, or the Cardinals could be 20 games over 500, and it's always close, right? Like those are always close games. But there are just certain things you just say when you're new to a ball club, you're new to a place, to get into the culture. And I think like Wilson clearly is hurt by the front office for not getting another contract from here. And I can understand that. He came into the country at a very young age underneath the Cubs umbrella. And this is all he knows. Wrigley Field is all he knows. So when he gets a taste of something new, the immediate perception of where things are going to be with this new club or this. It's like when you get a new car, right? After you've had the same car for forever and you trade it in and you're like, oh, I'm really going to miss this. And then you get the new car and you're like, oh, this is cool. These new bells and whistles are cool. But after like 6 months, maybe 4 months, when the thing isn't as new anymore, you're like, oh, it's a car. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is what it is. But in the beginning, you're talking it up to your buddies. Look, oh, sunroof. Like I got the Bose system and everything is great when you first step into it. But I'm going to tell you right now, I want to revisit this conversation in June. Because if Wilson Contreras is struggling and he's getting the Dexter Fowler treatment, I want to know how great it is over there in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to play. To me, they're the polar opposites. Wrigley has its World Series in the bank. The Cardinals are much like the Patriots, right? It's a team of show up, we're here to win championships. It's no thrills. You play in a park that is sold out every day and beautiful and the mecca of baseball, for a lot of people say here in Wrigley Field. And when you go to Busch, it's cookie cutter. It's a park. It's Cardinal tradition in some ways.
But it's got Big Mac land.
Yeah, but big people down there too. Big people down there. But to each their own. Charles Barkley talked about San Antonio for a while in the same way, and that's some of that's not true either. But to each their own. But in terms of like what's going on with this whole back and forth, it's loud now because it's the beginning and the questions are there from the reporters. Yeah. But I want to see when and if he's hitting 188 and he's not buying strikes for his pitchers and maybe he's hurt. I don't know. I hope that these things aren't the case. I wish him success against every other team but the Cubs. But I want to know if the tone stays the same once the struggles come, because there's going to be struggles. I mean, there's going to be moments where there's going to be stretches where he goes 0 for 20. We've seen him here where he looks old and bad. And there's going to be stretches where he carries a baseball team. But the flip of it is like he warranted, he should be upset. He didn't get a contract. But on the flip, like, it's early. And I think all of this is just so overblown. It's going to sort itself out over 162. And let's just let that happen. As a Cub fan, my PSA to most of these guys, let it sort itself out, because it's all talk until, what's the quote? Everybody's got something to say. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. Yep. Yeah, that's exactly what I think could potentially happen with this. And I don't have ill will. I thank him for everything he did for 2016 and, 2017, that whole Cub run. But he kind of sounds like an ex-girlfriend that all of us just need to move on from. Like, it's time to move on and to new and greener pastures.
Absolutely. Incredibly well put, Juice. Incredibly well put. And, just to quickly reference the comments just here, you mentioned, right, if he gets hurt, right, Jeremiah said over under 100 games Wilson plays. And, I think that's that's going to be the case. And if nothing else, for the guys that played with him on the team last season, because there are still some of those guys around, the Morels and the Wisdoms and the Stromans of the world, bulletin board material. Anytime the Cardinals come to town, bulletin board material. Oh, you really like it there so much, huh? Okay, well, we're going to go beat your ass for it and call it a day.
I'll tell you who I already hate on that team more than anybody there, though, and he hasn't even taken a swing against the Cubs yet. That Walker kid is going to be a huge thorn in our side.
Oh, I know.
It's going to be a prop. Like, he's going to be the new Arenado, Goldsmith that we hate.
He's going to be the next.
Going to be there for forever.
The next Cubs killer. Yeah. I know. It's coming. It's inevitable. The Cardinals and Thanos have something in common. They're just fucking inevitable, and it's just a pain in the ass, and I can't stand it, but it is what it is. Juice, one other quick topic before we kind of open up for any, random final thoughts or anything that we have in the bag. PCA, the C is for Cannon. Showed off the arm today. Got a guy at second base after, he tried to stretch it into a double. I know he's got developing to do, but like I'm looking forward to MILB TV tuning in and watching him, play defense pretty regularly this season, because that play alone just further confirms everything we hear, right, as Cubs fans from all these prospect insiders and our guy Rob Wegley internally for prospects, guys externally, Greg Huss, Greg Zumach, Brian Smith, friend of the program, those guys, right? Like his elite defense. The elite defense was shown today. And it's not just the glove, right? It's not just that range that he shows off when he covers so much ground to make a catch. Or, it's not all that either. The arm comes with it. He's got an elite arm defensively. And we saw it today. And it was really, really cool. And again, that just further, if he can do anything close to what he did in the minors last season in terms of average and what he did on the base paths and shit like that at the major league level with that defense, I'm already. I love Belly. I wouldn't be mad about Belly sticking around long term. You can always move him to first base, but son of a bitch, PCA is going to be fun to watch playing center field for the Cubs for hopefully a decade plus.
Move Belly to DH because Mash Mervis too. He started pretty well for a guy who hasn't seen a lot yet. But yeah, Ron, I so badly want to pull and have Brian pull the highlight of him throwing to second base today, and then pull the recap episode that we talked about PCA when they gave all the grades. And I said his arm rating was way too low because I said it on the show that it clearly there wasn't somebody. Whoever made these the ratings didn't watch him enough to know that he does. Let me just say this. It's not the best arm I've ever seen in center field. It's not. And it probably won't be. But you know what he's really damn good with? Accuracy. He's the type of guy that like one bounce throw is he's like a scientist with it. And I'm going to say this. I watched his routes to the baseball, over in center field throughout these spring training games. Mind you, it's only been 2. I think he could be playing better. His routes, he had one route to the outfield that ended up in a triple today, I believe, that I saw. I was like, man, in South Bend, he makes that play. Because I've seen him make that play. Into the gap. He was a step away, but I think he had one step that was mistaken. And it was kind of funny because I was like, man, everyone's going to be like, there's no way he gets to that baseball. But I've watched him take that route. And I went, yeah, he probably, if you asked him, he probably would say, yeah, I should have caught that ball, which is so funny because that was mashed into the gap. Mm-hmm. And it went over his head and he was a step or 2 away. But he took 2 wrong steps in the beginning of the route. So it's funny to me, like he's throwing highlights out there, and I think he could play better because I've seen him play better. So it's funny to like everyone's gonna throw roses his way, but I watched so much of that kid that and his at bat, there was one pitch he fouled back that I'm like, man, like in spring training or not in South Bend, I watched him take that ball into the gap the other way. And he would definitely tell you that, yeah, I should have hit that pitch into the gap. And he ended up fouling it back. So he could play. It's crazy. He can play better.
Yeah. And again, I think that goes back to my comment about the development, right? Like there's still some development for him in terms of facing more MLB level players. He's going to see that in AA, where he's probably going to start this year with Tennessee. As Scott from Iowa says here, it's going to be awesome in Principal Park this summer, already banking on him being in AAA by the summertime. He's got a little more developing to do, but that's okay. Because like you said, he's already throwing highlights out there as an unfinished product. And I think that's what gets people excited, is understanding he has that room and that potential to be better. And
they had a real interesting conversation with him too, or about him too on the telecast day about him seeing more pitches. That's definitely the next aspect of his game he's got to get better at, because he swings often. Like, you think I'm not on a scale of 1 to Javi, like he's definitely not that, but I mean he definitely needs to be more selective. And I think it was JD who said it. Like that's he absolutely, like, that's the next point of his game to get them. I think the quote was he needs to see more pitches to see more pitches in his strike zones to where he can handle and turn and like a double into a triple. Like those are the things that he's going to be so valuable for. But it was interesting, and it was good because I had forever been like, man, I wonder what you ever watch a player and you're like, there's something about this player that he's missing, but I can't put my finger on it. And then you have like these, awesome broadcasters like JD and Book who just are so damn good at like pinpointing like how to say what they need to work on. And like for forever watching PCA, I was like, yeah, I love him, but there's something about his bat I don't like. That's what I don't like. He's just not as patient as much as he should. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, that like you said, and we've hammered home, I think that'll come in time with the development. And again, a reason why, there's a lot of people pining that, he's going to make a push late in the season. Maybe we see him in 23. No. You'll see him 24 at the earliest. Like, they are not going to rush this kid. There's no reason for it. You want him to be a finished product or as close to it as humanly possible, because we've seen the experiment, not necessarily with the Cubs, just in sports in general. Like, as a Blackhawks Four Feathers podcast, co-host here for On Tap Sportsnet, i.e. the Kirby Doc situation of the last few years, where these prospects and these young players are expected to do too much early, and they get brought up sooner, and the pressure, and they don't continue to develop the right way, and they never reach their full potential with that team. Like, that's a real concern. And I don't think the Cubs want that to happen. I think they truly want to see his development through the right way. And again, if he really struggles this year and they think he's a 2025 debut guy, then you bring Bellinger back on a, depending on what he does, or you find another, 1 year stopgap for center field.
Brennan Davis play it next year.
Yeah. Maybe it's Brennan Davis for a year if Ian Happ moves on. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of, again, there's a reason they have guys here, is to see that through and obviously to get there at some point.
But, and Ron, real quick to add to that, he's only 20 years old.
Yeah, he's a baby.
He's growing into his body still.
He can't even legally drink alcohol in this country.
Right.
Like,
I'm sure he does, but
yeah, let's neither here nor there. But he still has face acne. Like, let's calm down here, folks. He'll be fine. He'll be fine. He'll be a 22-year-old superstar at some point. But he's only 20. It's 2 years away. That's okay. But it gives you, as a fan, it's nice having prospects that outside of that 2015 group. And again, just quickly adding that 2016 group is a perfect example of why you don't rush prospects to the big leagues. All of them got here and they all plateaued. Mm-hmm. They didn't continue to develop further. Could you imagine if Chris Bryant developed further, or Anthony? Rizzo was probably the closest to a finished product that they had, truthfully, out of all their prospects. But could you imagine if, aside from being just a scumbag, but like if Addison Russell had continued to develop? That was the guy that they were saying was the next great shortstop. Remember, like, it wasn't supposed to ever be Javier.
I mean, they were talking about how Addison Russell was going to be better than Chris Bryant because he had more 5 tools. He did the 5 tools better than Chris Bryant at one point in his development. Yes. So yeah, you're right. I mean,
it shows you can absolutely fuck up development with a player and derail their career. And B, it also shows you that not every prospect is going to work out the way they say they will. And I'm not saying PCA is not going to work out. I truly believe PCA is probably one of the most surefire bets this Cubs team has in their prospect pool in terms of a guy that's going to be a big leaguer.
Yeah.
But again, it goes to show when, like, I think, like, when people, for example, just quickly here, make the argument with Ian Happ, right? And saying, they shouldn't bring Happ back because what are you going to do with all these outfield prospects? There's no guarantee any of them even play a fucking game with the Cubs. Pardon my potty mouth, but sometimes the F-bomb just gets the point across.
Well, name the 3. Name the 3 at the top. Canario, we don't even know if he could play the outfield.
He's hurt, right?
Right.
Like, you got him. Alcantara's years away. He's the same age as PCA.
Brennan Davis is coming off a major back injury. We don't know what he's going to be.
You don't screw with backs, i.e., look at Anthony Rizzo.
And PCA is 20, and he's got things to work on too. Like, yeah. I mean, absolutely. So, I mean, we talk about all these prospects, and yeah, we get really excited because there is a lot of potential here.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it is such a crapshoot, and Ian Happ is going to get freaking paid. So freaking paid after what just happened today with Manny Machado.
Yeah.
Ian Happ is going to be arguably the second best position player hitting the market next year.
Yeah. And the only other one is literally the only two-way player, since Babe Ruth.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's Shohei Ohtani.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, especially if Ian puts together another season like he did last year, which
I feel like he's gonna. He's absolutely gonna.
You can make the argument those numbers are going to be better because he has more around him this season. It's not him and Seiya having to carry the top of that lineup and Wilson Contreras. It's you have Dansby Swanson. You have Nico Horner, who's probably going to take another step forward. You have Bellinger, who, if he rebounds, awesome. You know what I mean? Even if he's 2/3 of the player he was when he was an MVP in LA. You have a guy like Seiya who's probably going to take that next step. He's going to have more help this year. So that RBI total that he had last year, I think he had 72, if I remember correctly. And somebody wants to fact check me, whether you're listening on podcast form or live version, feel free to. I believe it was 72 ribbies.
High 80s, 90s, possible.
I think 90s is absolutely possible. With that, 265, 270-ish average. I mean, he had 42 doubles last year. He might hit a couple more home runs, but I think he's right around that 20 home run mark. I'll take 20 home runs for me and Happ with 40 doubles and 90 runs driven in. That's hot and cool and tough all in one big crazy package. And he's a Gold Glover defensively. Like, let's not forget that too. Yeah, he's going to be a hot commodity, man. Juice, I've got nothing else on our rundown. We hit on everything that we wanted to talk about. We went a little longer than we wanted, but we everybody that listens to the show knows how it is when the Juice and Luce show gets on. We go down.
Hey, we like to talk baseball. I mean, I think it's funny, man. Like, it's my last thoughts are just right here. It's we've talked in circles, right, over the offseason. We've theorized, everything from the Cubs getting 2 of those major shortstops to then they just ended up with Dansby. Like, it's fun now to see what is built, what Jed and Carter kind of put together now in some form be put on a ball field. But I'm cautiously optimistic. I think that I try to theme every year, and last year was the year before last year. We themed it it was the case study. Remember, because we had the pitchers that none of them could strike anybody out. I forgot last year what I themed last year, but this year I'm also theming it a case study, and it's the case study of bounce back players plus guys who play defense. What does that get you? The Cubs are going to absolutely be that. They're going to maybe surprise some people with the bats. I think a little bit more. I think the projections are a little bit lower in terms of offensive output that they can get to. But the strength of this baseball team is going to be pitching and defense. And I'm going to say it right now. This is my Cub prediction for the year. We haven't done our prediction show yet. We will eventually. But if the Cubs can average a team ERA below 3.75, they will be in the playoffs.
Spicy. I like it.
You want to know why I say that? Because if you go back and look at every team that made the playoffs last year, they were in the top 10 in team ERA. All of them. Every single one of them.
It's true.
All the way down to the play-in. It was copy-paste. So you know what? It's going to be about run prevention and team ERA. And I know that ERA is kind of an outdated stat, but I don't care because I'm going to pull it up. And if it's going to mirror what the playoffs look like, 3.75 gets you in that conversation. If it's below or at that, that's where you're going to be. And that's my prediction for the year. It's my bold prediction.
I like it. Well, and quickly to back that up with some more numbers, Juice. I mean, look at the second half numbers for Team ERA. The Cubs were up there. They were the only non-playoff team in the second half that was up there. Yeah, number third. Behind what? The Astros and Dodgers? Oh, yeah, two teams that made the playoffs and obviously
and were the favorites to be the World Series meet.
Exactly. Like, because they pitched well and they played good defense. Like, there's a reason the Cubs are building the way they're building. I'm absolutely there with you. Juice, I have nothing else to add to that. I think that's a great way to go out. I will say this for all of our listeners via the podcast and here in the live stream. If you joined us for the last show, you learned that the Trey Mancini bet is coming to fruition that our friend Jeremiah Hardell was so kind to throw out there into the universe, and for my 3 of my 4 hooligans here to voluntold me to do it. It's here. They're here, I should say. It was a 2-pack.
Have you? I gotta ask. Have you given them a trial run?
Oh yeah, they fit. Oh, they fit. They're a little weird. I'm not gonna lie. They ride up the booty cheeks a little bit.
Well, yeah, that's the whole idea.
But,
of the whole thing.
Yeah, it fits. I was afraid I was like gonna stretch it and they were gonna rip, but like no, they fit. They fit.
Good coverage.
Good enough.
Good enough.
I mean, on this show, you don't see my lower half, so that's not going to matter.
Right.
It's just going to look ridiculous when you just see strip and strip of color, and that's all you're going to see.
Which is going to be absolutely hilarious.
No, it's going to be ridiculous. It's coming this week, but that's where I was trying to get with this. Is it's coming this week. We're probably going to record, if I'm a betting man, on Wednesday of this week. So be sure to tune into that. If you want to know when we go live, again, YouTube, head over there. The little bell, make sure to hit that. And Scott wants to know really quick here. I want to address this. What's worse, the bikini bet or banishing Joey to the right field bleachers? 100% banishing Joey to the right field bleachers. Because
wait, we're banishing Joey to the right field bleachers?
Oh yeah, you missed that last week. So we started making the Seiya prediction, right? Because remember I said if Seiya hits 50 bombs, I would do something stupid because that's just what I do. And then it quickly, because I had essentially voluntold Joey is like, we played the connections game, like the drinking game, where like he's my drinking buddy now. Like anything I do, he has to do too. And somebody brought up banishing him to the right field bleachers. So that's where that came from.
All right. I missed that part of the show.
Yeah, it was last week. You know, we rolled with the other 4. You know, we have 5 now, so it's going to be interesting the groupings that we see throughout the year. We're working with our lineup just like the Cubs will be all season long. But
very versatile around here too.
Very versatile indeed. But I want to kind of finish on that point with I'm going to put out a poll, probably either Tuesday or Wednesday day. And I'm going to ask people what color, because they're Cubs colors. It's red and blue. I want to know, do people want to see red? I have a very terrifying feeling they're probably going to want red, because red is just that kind of color for things like that. Or blue, because again, I have blue, and it's pretty close to a Cubby blue too. So like it works. It works. So I'm intrigued to see what the public decides. But I want people to have fun with it. I'm gonna have fun with it.
Of course.
I don't take myself too seriously, so we're gonna have fun with it. I want the people to pick the color. So be on the lookout for that. I will tweet it from my Twitter. We'll retweet it from the Cubs on Tap Twitter as well. I'm sure the boys are going to retweet it as well, because they want to know what the public wants too. And again, you see, if you're watching live with us, our Twitter handles are always in our little name tags here. We always put them on in the podcast description as well. So be sure to check that out as well too. But yeah. Jeremiah already with an early vote. He's on blue. He wants to see blue. So we got 1 vote blue already. Jeremiah, be sure to vote in the poll on Twitter though, because that's the one that's ultimately going to make the decision. So that's going to carry weight. It's going to carry weight. So it'll be interesting to see. But that'll be this Wednesday. So if you want to see, I would appreciate everybody tuning in and seeing me look ridiculous on camera. The hat will be on too, though, by the way. It'll just be that and a hat.
We got to clip it and try to get it to Trey Mancini somehow.
We'll figure out a way.
The Mancini for Mancini, maybe. Like we got to figure something out that way.
I think the only thing we were missing from that possibility here, Juice, was nobody recorded my reaction when he signed at CubsCon.
Oh, you were. I should have,
because I was just like, everybody's excited, and I'm like, damn it, and everybody's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I have to wear a bikini now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just a very different. Again, we were participating very heavily in the hashtag Crackham movement.
Dude, that was a Crackham night. Yeah.
Oh, that was a night. That was a night indeed. But again, I'm a man of my word. They came last week. They actually came when we did our last show that day, and I didn't have enough time. We wanted to hype it up a little bit. We wanted people to tune in for the stupid shit. This is probably going to happen again. I'm sure we're going to get to a point in the season where like once a month, I'm going to be like, if this happens in tomorrow's game, I'm going to do X.
Or we're just going to start passing the Mancini around. Like, I think that's a distinct possibility, but wash it before.
Yeah. I was going to say, we're not, this is no like weird fraternity nasty shit. It's going to be like, you have to wear it. Oh, and you're not washing it for the next person. That would just be disgusting.
We got to find something to qualify like Nick, or it would just stick with Joey, because Joey just seems to be like our whipping boy as of late. But we need to figure out like another show bet coming up here.
Oh, there will be plenty, and we're gonna try and work some stuff out.
Ooh,
with the guys too, and like there's gonna be a lot of things.
What we should do is have our preseason show and a lot of our predictions showing some
come with bets. It's like and again, we're a hashtag Kraken brand here, as everybody knows. You ever played the game Horses? Drinking Horses? Yeah, where for those that don't know what Horses is, the aces are all your horses, right? And you have to bet how many seconds of giving out drinks at the beginning of the race. You pick a suit and you run with it, and you shuffle up all the cards. It's a fun game. Go Google it. I highly encourage everybody. It's probably my favorite drinking game to play. It's a lot of fun because it gets really intense. It's like the craps table at a casino. It gets really loud and there's a lot of screaming. But like, yeah, we could do that. Like, hey, I will do X if this does or does not happen, and we could even attach it where like, hey, if it comes to fruition and you're right, you get to give out the punishment to other people.
That's what I'm saying.
This could be fun. We will be in negotiations about this. Again, we're here for the.
And also, dingers, don't think you're safe from this either. You're underneath the On Tap brand too. Don't think this is just a Cubs on Tap thing. No, we're all in this loony bin together. So don't think that I can't throw bets over to those guys, thinking that they're just on an island by themselves laughing at. No, we're all open here.
I'm betting Jeff another entire cake on a show that he has to eat in one sitting. Yeah. That one's coming back. That was impressive, and we need to see it again. But this time it's gonna be a bigger cake. We're gonna make it a bigger, like a full sheet cake or something like that. Just one show has to get it down. It'll be fun. We'll have fun with it. It'll be a good time. So yeah, Wednesday, everybody participate with the selection process. And tune in and laugh at me and poke fun at me. You're more than welcome to. If you want to poke fun at us to show it on the show, though, again, Facebook, YouTube, you got to be in the comments where we can see them. Unfortunately, Twitter took away the ability to see comments in StreamYard here, so that is what it is. Also, just a really quick shout out to El Prez of On Tap Sports Network. Happy birthday, Mr. Tony Marchese. Big shout out and big birthday shout out to him. Again, he's the big boss here, even though he's a Socks on Tap guy. He's still a good dude. He supports us heavily here. So
happy birthday, Tony. They're trading Patrick Kane.
Yeah, literally. Don't get me. Don't do that to me. I'm already.
Sorry, I know.
I'm already hurt. Also, little quick shout out. Anybody that is a Blackhawks fan, I'm sure there's quite a few of them here that listen to Cubs on Tap. Friday is the Four Feathers Tank Center. It is trade deadline day for the NHL. On Friday, we'll be at Casa de Marchese, the Four Feathers crew, doing a ton of live content and putting out just stupid hooligan shit all day. It's going to be a lot of fun. So highly encourage people to tune in and see what we're up to. But that'll be a good time. That is this Friday. We're starting early too. It's like 9:45 in the morning. I've already been instructed. I'm rolling up to Coste Marchese with McDonald's breakfast and we're
mimosas.
Yeah, McDonald's breakfast, mimosas, and a 30 rack of Busch Light for Johnny, and we're just getting after it. Like it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Tune into that.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good way to break up the week for everybody. Hopefully, it's going to be a great way to break up my week because Lord knows I'll need it. That'll be my first day off in quite a while, so it'll be nice. I'm very much looking forward to it. Juice, before we get out of here though, buddy, I want to remind everybody: Cubs on Tap, one of 2 official Cubs podcasts here for the On Tap Sports Network. Be sure to check out our friends over at Dingers. They are at Dinger Cubs on Twitter and Instagram. Mitch, Jeff, Kevin, Jake, and the boys all do a great job. Be sure they will be also recording on Monday night, unless they're skipping for this week for some unrelated reason, but they record every Monday at 8:00. Be sure to tune in with them live and show them support as well. Those guys do a great job. Love listening to their show. I'm always tied up on Monday nights naturally when they go live, and I hate it because I want to be in the comment section, but I always tune in the next day via the pod, or I'll bring up the replay of the show because they do a great job. So be sure to go follow all those guys as well. Also follow us. We are at Cubbies on Tap. That's Twitter and Instagram for that handle. Remember, CUBBIES for that, even though we are Cubs on Tap. Again, I'm Luce on Tap, Juice on Tap. We got Nick _ on tap now. Mr. Nick Hudson's got his Twitter up and running and ready. He is Nick _ on tap. And then obviously at Joey Knows Nothing, at Teddy Freddy 270. And be following all of our writers too. Again, at Bulls Guy Rob, that's our prospect guy here with Cubs on Tap. Brand new writer, doing a lot of writing for us already out the gate here with Cubs, Mr. Ryan Sykes. Be sure to follow him on Twitter as well. That dude's awesome, and he is a writing machine, and I am just so impressed by it every time that he has an article ready to go, and I'm always excited to read them as well. And then we keep it moving on that front there with all of the old socials, as well as Brandon King. That is the other one we don't want to forget. That's our preview guy throughout the course of the season. Bulls, Bears, Blackhawks, you know the drill. We got it all. Remember, Four Feathers Tank Center is this Friday if you want to tune into that. And yes, again, Cubs fans, we all have friends that like the Southsiders. I have a lot of them. I live in the South Side in Chicago. Be sure to send them over to our friends, though, at Sox on Tap, because the boys over there did a great job covering the other team and the little brother here in Chicago. Once again, On Tap Sports Network. We are at On Tap Sportsnet on social media, ontapsportsnet.com. The On Tap Sports Network. Go ahead and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Juice, my friend, it's always a pleasure. We talked about doing a 40-minute show. Instead, we did a 92-minute show.
Yeah, whatever.
And, we had a lot to talk about. Potato. This was an impromptu show, too, so thank you for everybody joining. We didn't expect to do this. Literally, this came to fruition at about 4:00 this afternoon. So appreciate everybody that jumped in the comments, our friends Scott and Jeremiah, everybody that tuned in on YouTube, on Facebook, even on Twitter as well. And again, this Wednesday we'll be back with you, and I will fulfill my Trey Mancini bet. It's coming. It's finally going to happen.
Can't wait.
Can't wait. I can wait, but it's going to be fun. And we'll have a good time with it nonetheless. But Juice, my friend, what do you say we get out of here? The only way we know how at Cubs on Tap.
Fuck the Cardinals.
Oh, fuck them. And let's go.